Hello all, I hope you are doing fine. Welcome to a new video. In this video, we are going to understand the theoretical concepts which we need to understand before entering into the practical sessions of SQL. So, let's get into the video. In this video, we are going to understand the basic questions, theoretical knowledge of SQL. So, like what kind of program language is SQL and what are all the data objects which we will be using in SQL and what are all the major components of SQL. So, let's get into the video to understand this in detail. So any software programming language you take like Java, C, Python, everything will be falling under, majorly into two types of programming language. One is procedural and another one is non-procedural. In procedural, the corresponding software programming language will be following a certain structure of the programs. Say for example, in C programming, we might be using the header and footer of that program. So for any condition or for any programming style, this standard operating procedure should not be changed. If a programming language follows that pattern, it is called as procedural. So basically, if the software programming focuses on how to do the program, means it is a procedural type. I hope you are clear, right? Okay. The same exact opposite of this is non-procedural. Say in this type, programming language will not focus on how to write the program. It will be majorly focusing on what to do with that program. Let me use a simple example to differentiate procedural programming language and non-procedural programming language. Say for example, I'm asking my teammate, his name is Ajay. Okay. Now I'm telling, hey Ajay, please send me that report. Okay. In this instruction, it is clearly mentioned what he has to do. That is what he needs to send a report. This is non-procedural because it is focusing on what he has to do. Say instead, I'm just instructing him step by step. Hey Ajay, log into your laptop, open mailbox, check whether you have completed that report. Now attach that report into the email that you are going to send it to me and then send. Check whether it has been delivered to me. Okay. So in case if I instruct him step by step in order to complete the set of task, means it's procedural. So this is the basic difference between procedural and non-procedural. Again, I reiterate difference briefly. Procedural means it focuses on how to do. Non-procedural means it focuses on what to do. All right. Now let's move on to the next steps. So under procedural, there are two types of programming language. One is imperative, another one is object oriented. So imperative means it's a programming model based upon the concept of calling a procedure. As I said earlier, it follows a standard procedure in running that program. For example, C programming. All right. So next is object oriented. So it is a kind of programming model which is based upon the concepts of objects, which is used to interact with the user. So if you see, basically the entire program will be broken into multiple objects and every object will be a standalone. Okay, it will be operating individually. For example, Python, Java, C++, these are fall under the object oriented. Now let's come to non-procedural. So under non-procedural, we have two types. One is declarative and functional. Declarative means, as I said earlier, I'm just declaring what has to be done. All right. So this programming model where the user has to specify only what to do, not how to do. Okay. This is also known as applicative or functional language like SQL. Is functional, although it is a subset of declarative. Let me explain this in detail here as well. Okay. So in functional model, the programming model is constructed to bind everything in a pure mathematical style. Say in case if I say something like arithmetical operations, means it will be completely binded with the arithmetical operations only. So the major example of functional languages are C sharp, JSON and Haskell. Okay. Now you may ask me a question. How come when a user focuses on what to do, how it is performing better? So here comes a component of SQL that is called as optimizers. Okay, whenever you declare something or whenever you say something to SQL, this SQL optimizers will break it into multiple pieces and it will perform the operation what you wanted. So which in turn SQL optimizers helps the user in order to focus what they want, so that it will take care of the other part, that is how to do it. So SQL optimizer helps us in doing this. All right. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is database objects. So database objects means these are all the objects which is present in a database which used to store or recognize the data. All right. So there are multiple database objects which we need to understand in a basic terms. Okay. For example, table, you know very well, whenever a data is organized in terms of rows and columns, it is known as table. All right. Next is view. View means It logically represents a subset of data. For example, in a table, you are creating a small query in order to get the data. So it's like a subtable. When you create a view, it is storing the data in forms of subtable. All right. Next is store procedure. Say for example, you are writing the same query again and again, means you need not to rewrite it again if you create a store procedure. It is like a temporary memory which will single or group of multiple SQL statements so that it can be reused at any point of time. Next is index. So index means basically it is a representation function which is used to improve the performance of some complex queries. We will discuss all these topics one by one in the due course in detail. Now let's move on to the other topic, that is components of SQL. If you take any software programming or any software development kit, no, it will be working with the multiple components. So basically this has been classified into multiple layers. As we know very well, SQL is a programming language which is used to create and manipulate the database. Means it is created to interact with the database. So in this one, the SQL is majorly broken into five types of components. One is data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, data transaction, and data query language. Let's discuss this in detail one by one. You have any SQL commands or queries which is used to create or modify the structure of the database objects. Say for example, when I have a table, in case if I'm introducing a new column or deleting the existing column, means it will change the structure of the table. So the commands or queries which is used to change the structure of the table, that will be falling under data definition language. The commands like create, alter, drop, truncate, and rename. So these are all DDL commands. Next is data manipulation language. Most of the SQL commands or queries which we will be using may be falling under DML only. So because this serves the basic function of SQL, that is interacting with the database, like feeding something into the database or extracting from the database. All right. Yes. Next is data control language. Say for example, data is one of the sensitive item. We cannot allow multiple hands to operate in a database. We always need to be very specific who should have the control with the data. All right. So this command used to permit the user and also revoke the user who can able to access the database. So the major commands used under this segment is grant and revoke. All right. Next is transaction control language. So whenever you do a set of tasks, you always used to save it, right? Say for example, in a Microsoft Word document, you are writing something. If you wanted to save, that means you will use Control S, and if you wanted to undo something because of some error has happened, right? So these are all the basic of transaction control language. So this is basically used to execute the transaction of task. Okay, say if you have done something, if you want to save it, means it's commit. In case something has error has happened, means if you wanted to go to the previous step, means it is rollback. All right. So the next most important function is data query language. Initially it was present in DMN and later it has been kept as a separate component. So it is used to get the data out of database. All right. So the major command used under this component is select. I hope this may give a basic idea on what are all the components of SQL. Don't worry, we will see each and every command in the forthcoming videos with examples. Alright, I hope this video is useful for you and you got a basic understanding of the theoretical knowledge in SQL, like what kind of programming language it is, what are all the data objects and what are all the components of SQL. I have also given the document that I've used in this video in the description for your reference. Please refer it. Happy in seeing you in this video. We will meet in the next video. Thank you.